Trust the small work of God within you. Trust the work, trust the small work, trust the small work of God within you.
So I want to speak specifically to those of you that are discerning a call to the priesthood in order to talk about kind of how priests interact from the time, with whom do you interact and how, from this moment all the way through until ordination. And I also want to talk about deacons for that, although it's a little bit simpler for deacons. So I think of this as a journey from where you are now, which is a member of a local congregation within the Episcopal Church. Right now, the people who are your primary spiritual supports and your primary pastor is your priest or the priests that serve your local congregation. And so as a member of your congregation, your primary pastoral support is local. And it is your priest, it's your deacon, it's the community that is in your local congregation. As you journey towards the diaconate and the priesthood, you will move actually away from that local community, and ultimately by the time you're ordained, you would be part of the diocesan community as your primary community of support. Priests and deacons are not members of congregations. They are sent to have oversight and to minister to those congregations. So it's a very different thing. Priests are members of a diocese, not members of a congregation, even though they preside at vestry meetings and stuff like that. They're actually beholden to their bishop, who holds their vows, and also they are members of the diocese where they vote, not members of the congregation itself. So you're going to be journeying from your local congregation, which sort of gives birth to your vocation and helps nurture that, and then you'll be on a journey. But all the way through that journey from this moment until ordination, you need to make sure you stay connected to your local community and also to your diocesan community. Over time, it will go kind of like this, where your local community will decrease and the diocesan community will increase. But you still, even up to the date of your ordination, your local community and your local rector and priest will be a part of that journey, even to and through the ordination process. So what does that look like? Right now, it means stay in regular contact with your sponsoring priest and your rector. That means probably monthly meetings of just checking in, maybe having a cup of coffee, but talking about your spiritual discernment and how that's going. It also means that you will have at some point a meeting with the vestry, who will be interviewing you about the possibility of you becoming a deacon or a priest. It also means you should be regularly engaged in ministry, regular in your worship in the congregation, participating in the community in the congregation, and talking with your priest about how your skills in ministry could be used in your local congregation. Start local and focus on that right now. As you enter into your formation process, and you maybe say are in the Bishop's School for Ministry, or you're doing a low residence program, then you may still be, for some of that time, attending your local congregation. But pretty soon in the process, we'll be assigning you to another congregation outside of your current congregation. And that's to give you the opportunity of experiencing life in another congregation other than your own, and also for us to get some feedback and information about how others outside of your local community are experiencing you and your ministry. It's a great way for us to learn and grow, because as I've said before, if you're called to ordination, you're called not to serve your community of origin, you're called to serve the church wherever the church needs you to serve. And so that means you need to be flexible and adaptable, able to serve in a variety of different contexts. And that learning to function as someone doing ministry in a variety of ways, in a variety of communities, starts as a part of your formation process. And so going through time, you'll spend less and less time actually on Sundays in your local community as your formation goes forward. And by the time you're ready for ordination to the diaconate, you will be mostly serving in communities other than your own. And yet still we want you to stay in touch with your local rector, who is your sponsoring priest, and your congregation, who will be maybe helping to support you by helping to pay some of your the costs of your formation program. And so you'll sort of be spending less time and be less connected to your congregation as your formation program goes on, but you'll still be at least a little bit connected to them all the way through. Once you become ordained as a deacon or a priest, the diocese and your bishop become your chief pastoral support. I'm your chief pastor right now, as you are a layperson, but you haven't taken vows of obedience to serve your bishop, and you haven't taken vows to serve for the rest of your life the Episcopal Church. You haven't taken vows to uphold the doctrine, discipline, and ministry of you haven't taken vows yet to uphold the doctrine, discipline, and worship as this church has received them. And so now, as a layperson, if you want to leave the Episcopal Church to go and become a Methodist, you're free to go. But once you become ordained, in order to serve a church outside of the Episcopal Church, you need to actually have permission from the bishop or to renounce your lifelong vows. So the process of going from where you are right now as a layperson with lots of freedom nurtured by your local community to being an ordained person with a bit less freedom nurtured by a diocesan community under the direct ministry of your bishop, that's a journey that's going to take a couple of years. But by the time you're ordained a deacon, you will be supported and nurtured primarily by your bishop and your diocesan family. And if you move, you'll move from one jurisdiction to another, and the bishop will actually hand off the holding of your vows from one bishop to the other. If you're a priest, you can't work in another diocese without the permission of your bishop, and you'll need to be licensed by whatever bishop you are working with wherever you serve. You're not just free to kind of run around the church and do whatever you like. All of us who are ordained have our vows held by others, and that helps keep us all accountable for the ministry that we're doing on behalf of the church.
Trust the work, trust the slow work, trust the slow work of God within. Trust the work, trust the slow